Welcome, dear friends of Books and Voices of Revelation. Below, we have the narration of the following audiobook. Series, Pioneers of Faith. Episode 7. Stanley Howard Frodsham. His pen was tuned for greatness, 1882 and 1969. I first met Stanley Frodsham in the hotel room with Howard Carter in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, when God first brought Howard and me together for our mission trips. But I only became intimately acquainted with Frodsham several years later in Springfield, Missouri, at the headquarters of the Assemblies of God. He edited the Pentecostal Gospel for nearly 30 years and wrote 15 books. His position was very humble, though as editor-in-chief he could have held any position he wanted. However, he was a very humble man. He didn't seem to weigh more than 125 pounds with his bald little head and big smile. Every time I visited, he gave me a new perspective on the human heart, the Adamic nature in rebellion against God. He would sit and cry as he talked about this and say, "Remember that man's will is the greatest obstacle to God." He said that we must be servants who don't choose our destinies and we don't choose the things we want to do. We must choose Jesus, and He chooses our ways in life. It was always a teachable moment when you walked into his office. Young preachers were always welcome in his office. He wanted to show them how to be great, even though he himself was not a very effective speaker. However, his pen was tuned for greatness. He let Jesus choose his path. Originally from England, Frodsham attended a private school in Bournemouth until the age of 14. In later years, due to his interest in writing, he studied at a private school in England. Frodsham became the Young Men's Christian Association and then spent a year in Johannesburg, South Africa, as secretary of the newly formed YMCA. In 1908, Frodsham received the baptism in the Holy Spirit at Alexander Body's All Saints Church in Sunderland, England, which had become the centre of Pentecost in Britain. With his wife Alice Rowlands Frodsham, he emigrated to the United States in 1910. In 1916, he was elected General Secretary of the General Council of the Assemblies of God. In 1917, he became Missionary Treasurer, and in 1921 he was elected editor of all Assemblies of God publications. He also wrote for quarterly and Sunday school newspapers. Of the 15 books Frodsham wrote, the best known is The Apostle of Faith, a biography of Smith Wigglesworth. I think his greatest accomplishment was when he obeyed God, who put it on his heart not to let the works of Smith Wigglesworth die, and he wrote that book. Had it not been for this dedicated man, the world would never have known much about Smith Wigglesworth. It has been said that Frodsham's contacts with Pentecostal movements in Europe and throughout Canada gave the early editions of the Gospel a broader perspective than most Pentecostal publications. Assemblies of God leaders felt that the gospel kept missionary enthusiasm at a boiling point. In 1949, Frodsham retired as editor of all Assemblies of God publications and renounced his credentials. He then ministered for several years in the movement called Latter Rain and taught for a season at Elim Bible Institute. While in Elim, a prophecy was given about praying for Argentina. After that, Frodsham took a special interest in Argentina. Beginning in 1950, his counsel and ministry were sought because of his deep experience and ability to inspire others. Frodsham was a spiritual father to many. He often told me how a young man should live and grow spiritually in order to achieve more than what man considers normal. He really was a great man. The end. End of this wonderful read.